property doesn't stuff up, it's people that do, because people get bored with it. They find a new toy that they want, and they don't hold the distance.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard. Here's your host, Tabitha Bright.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. Now, my name's Tabitha Bright. I'm the head of coaching here at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your investing journey that little bit easier and will inspire you along the way. My guest today is a lovely lady called Chugg. Now, Laura's learned the power of starting early. She bought her first property at 19. And there's also been some other lessons along the way. Laura's investing has served her incredibly well, but she's had to learn some skill sets. One of those is the skill of delayed gratification. So we have a good chat around that. And secondly, the key fundamentals of buying well, never selling, and the well-documented snowball effect. So enjoy this conversation with the delightful Laura Chugg. Hey everyone, today I have the fabulous Laura Chugg with me. And Laura Chugg is not only a long-term client of Positive Real Estate, but she is also one of our long-standing coaching team. And Laura has invested in property for, a number of years. And she actually bought her first property before the age of 20. We were just debating, Laura. I mean, awesome to have you here, Laura. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome. And we were just saying that you've been saying that you were around 18 when you bought your first one, and you weren't 100% sure. So we're settling on probably 19 that you bought your first property.
Absolutely. Yes, I've still got to work out exactly what that number was. And I realised that, so I've changed my story about that. And it's now I was definitely under 20 when the older I get, the more phased I get about those kind of details.
Yeah, well, it all goes a bit blurry. I'm 52. I look back in time and it's starting to get quite a way now down that old timeline. But prior to 20, like buying your first property, first investment property or first property to live in?
Was first, I lived in it. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so awesome. I was looking, interesting story.
Please.
I was renting from when I was 16 and I decided, I started doing a number of different part-time jobs. I was very fortunate. I grew up on a large property and there's always a large number of jobs to do when you're on a property. So you start off with all the basic jobs of painting fences and ending it, then I moved on to being a rouseabout, and then I've even, cooked for shearers, cooked for builders. Interesting story. I once cooked a cake with salt instead of sugar, and that didn't go down well in the tea room with a bunch of shearers. So lesson to self, never do that. So
you're on a farm, yeah?
Yeah, grew up on a large property and had the benefit of learning how to work and earn pocket money from a fairly young age. My earliest lessons around money came from that. My father has always been my best mentor, and he always used to steal half our pocket money and invest it for us, and then half of it we got to take back to school and use as pocket money. So we learned some really good lessons about money and how to manage it. Because whilst obviously many of my friends had copious amounts of pocket money, I was on a strict budget of $5 a week. And if I overspent, then, that was less that I had for the following week. So you quickly learned. And then obviously being in a rental situation from when I was 16, you really had to manage money well. Yeah. And so I learned some very strong lessons, which put me in a good position to be able to buy my first property under 20 that I moved in. And my main priority was, like any 18 to 20-year-old young girl, was let's buy this property, pay it down as fast as possible. Then I can go shopping with all the leftover funds.
Oh. So it was all about getting rid of your mortgage so you could live the high life and go shopping. Makes complete sense to me.
It seemed like a reasonable goal at the time, let me tell you.
And so this first property that you bought, was it an apartment, a house, a unit? What did you buy?
Townhouse.
What did you buy it for?
Little townhouse. It was $69,000. And yeah, it's a beautiful little place. It had gorgeous little gardens connected to it. Can't believe I bought it for $69,000. But you know, at that stage, my hourly rate was also $5.88. So let's keep it.
Yeah, it's all relative, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so I bought that, and that sort of started to pay that down and build some equity into that, and that started my love of property. I then I met my husband fairly young, and we bought our home together in Evandale in Tasmania.
Yes,
and,
that's right. You're a Tassie girl, aren't you?
Absolutely.
As a Kiwi, I have affinity for Tasmania. I'll give you the big heart from.
I went to NZ when I was 6, so I remember it's green, and that's about it. But I am. But yeah, Tassie. Yeah. Tassie obviously offered some really good opportunities to get into the market at very reasonable prices. Yeah. But as I say, it was all relative because wages were very low as well.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, my husband and I got very focused on paying down our debt of our home once we kept the little townhouse. And, you know, we took that. And I remember we were just closing in on paying for that because our first home, and that was a 3-bedroom house, it was $96,000. We closed in on paying that down in 4 years, which wasn't too bad. We were pretty.
Hang on, let me just double check that. So you paid your home off in 4 years.
Yeah.
Right. And so even though it was $96,000, which seems just ridiculously cheap in today's market, it sounds like a deposit for most people today, it was relative to your wages and the economy back in that time. It would be like buying a $500,000 house today, I imagine.
Yeah, well, our incomes were very basic wages, $26,000, you know, a year.
Yeah.
So we basically spent 4 years. One of us put all of our money on the house, and we lived with the other one.
Right.
So it just was, you know, for me, it was about let's get ourselves into a position where we don't have to pay for the mortgage, pay for the rent, and then
it was all about the shopping. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then I can get back to the shopping. No, it's all about security, I think, and just knowing that you've got that roof over your head. So
let me ask you, did you still have the townhouse?
Yeah.
Okay. And how old were you when you bought your family home with your husband?
Ooh,
approximately.
About 22.
Okay, cool. Just putting a timeline on it for everyone. So prior to 20, you bought your townhouse, and had you paid that off, or you still had some to pay off?
Debt, yeah.
Okay. And so you met your husband, you got married, you bought the home, moved out of the townhouse, started renting that, I assume, would be the... Yep. Was that cash flow positive at the time?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So cash flow positive, which then obviously helped. Did it help you? Was it much cash flow positive? Did it help you pay down the debt on your family home?
No, that was largely based on, because I didn't put anything extra money in. I just left that sitting on its own.
Great.
I probably didn't understand things as well as I do now. But We just worked on our salary paying down the home.
Awesome. And
So,
do you still have that townhouse today?
No. No, unfortunately, I sold it and went to Europe. Yes, I did sell that one, but it's the only one that I have a habit of buying it well and then holding from there on in. The only houses I've ever sold after that has been houses that we've lived in, obviously, to get that jump, obviously the growth, tax-free, and obviously to make sure we have as little debt on the next house as possible.
Interesting. Okay. And that as a strategy has served you very well, I think. You and I often talk about how, we would certainly be amongst some of the team that have held property the longest at Positive Real Estate. Like yourself, I started not quite as early as you, not pre-20, but in my very early 20s, my husband and I bought our first family home. And that wasn't quite the fairy tale outcome, but it instilled in me the passion for property. And I think if you can get over the boredom, would you agree with me, Laura? If you can get over the boredom of holding and
Absolutely.
not selling and not fiddling with it, just letting it do its thing.
Well, this is what I say to people. It's, people do, property doesn't stuff up. It's people that do, because people get bored with it. They find a new toy that they want, and they don't hold the distance. So the property that I've held the longest is by far the queen of my portfolio. And that's the one I bought at about 23, 24. And that now is just cash flow paying the bills of everything else. And because I've held it, it's actually double, well, it's quadrupled. From its original purchase price. So time in the market is so vitally important, and people are wanting that fast hit. The one thing I think that I try and teach people is about delayed gratification. If I can just teach my 13-year-old son that, it'd be fabulous.
It's true though.
But I'll just work on clients for now. But delayed gratification is planting the seeds, watering it, and then obviously giving it time to grow. And that's what property investing, to my way of thinking, is all about.
Yeah, it's interesting. We often have coaching conversations, right, with the coaching team, and the two founders, Jason Witt and Sam Saggers, I caught up with them the other day, and there's some key fundamentals that we really want to get drilled into people. And there's always exceptions to rules, right? But it's good to have these sort of broad building blocks of a portfolio strategy. So the first one is buy well, never sell, right? And yes, there can be times when you might choose to sell. You might trade a property. There might be a point to paying down some debt. Your situation might change. So it's not set in stone, but generally as a concept, buy well, never sell is really important to creating decent wealth. The other thing that I heard Sam say, or Jason say, I can't remember which one, they were talking about the first million's the hardest, because you go from 0 to 1 million, like that's whatever percentage that is, to create. But then from 1 million, then the next million is a much smaller gap to bridge. Well, and then 1 million on top of 3 million is even less. Like the distance to travel becomes less and less when you're creating wealth. I don't know if I've explained that very well. You were going to say something.
It's the snowballing effect. So, bingo. You start off buying one property, and it's hard yakky. You've got to save your first deposit.
Absolutely.
And, to get into the market. And really, if you want to buy quickly, you can't always rely on the market to, get your deposit. So it's about saving and managing money as tight as possible.
Yeah.
And often when we're younger, we have less expectations about life and less expectations, or less, I guess, things weighing us down in terms of expenses. So it's a really good time in your life to just, get ahead. And once you've started to get 2 or 3 properties in the market, then it becomes that snowballing effect as properties then start to perform well for you over time.
Compounding capital growth. Yeah, the miracle that is compounding capital growth. Because I guess if you think you've got 2 million in the market at 10% is 200,000, obviously. Whereas if you've only got $500,000 in the market at 10%, it's 50 grand, and there's that gap. So the more you can get in the market working for you, the more you can hold, and the more you allow that compounding effect to happen. Over time, it creates that wealth that we're all looking for. So I guess for you, if you could give your younger self some advice, knowing what you know today, what would you say to young Laura?
Well, obviously, I don't think I could have started much earlier. But however, my biggest mistake, and I talk about this regularly with people, is not continuing on with my journey. So by the time I'd finished, I was 25, I had 3 properties under my belt, and I'd finished my degree, and I started the whole corporate ladder climbing. And so I put all my energy into, climbing the corporate ladder and building my business experience, which, has served me well in a lot of ways, because I've learned a lot about how people think. And I think when you work with people, it's all about, people buy people before they buy product. And so it's always about understanding how you can best serve people if you want to be successful in any kind of workplace. But, I spent 10 years focusing on that side of my life, and I forgot to keep going with my property investing. So, during that 10 years, I bought and sold a couple of owner occupiers, but I didn't do anything further with my investing until I woke up in my mid-30s and realised, and I do share this story well, I realised how badly my super was performing, even though I was in a corporate swanky fund. And I realised, my properties that I'd held had, doubled in value. And the expert that I was paying to look after my super fund had charged me to lose money for me.
Right.
And that was my aha moment to get back into property investing.
Interesting. And sometimes it does take these nudges, doesn't it? The little bit of pain to motivate to move forward. Because from a coaching perspective, like often, not always, a lot of people are motivated by the desire to have security, the desire to have choices, to not be stuck in the rat race, as we call it. But often we see people, because they have had a financial hit, a divorce, a challenge, or they might have seen maybe their parents not have options, or there may be some kind of pain factor that motivates people. I think sometimes, though, fear gets in the way, right? And so what would you say to anybody watching this that is thinking of growing a portfolio, but they're scared and they're fearful of making the wrong decision? And even if they don't know, they may not even recognize it as fear. They may just be sitting in analysis paralysis, or a bit of overwhelm, or they never get round to it, or they prioritize other stuff. Sometimes that can still have the base emotion of fear, right? That they put it off because of this unacknowledged fear. What would you say to somebody that's scared of making the wrong decision?
Well, to me, fear comes from lack of knowledge. And we all know that whenever we want to do something in life, really it's 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. Okay.
True.
So if it's fear that's holding someone back, then it's about building your knowledge and education around what you're trying to achieve. And I think, often, the people that we trust haven't got or feel confident with haven't got the experience in property investing or in what we're trying to achieve.
So our neighbours and friends and family and people, you mean? Yeah,
absolutely. And for a lot of people, parents, parents. And so it's vital to find someone that aligns with your values. I'm very much, someone who strongly believes that you treat other people the way that you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And, so when I'm looking for guidance and support from someone, I want to know that they're going to treat me how I expect to be treated, and vice versa, because that's the kind of relationship that I expect with people. And that to me is vital to form that trust. And once you have that relationship with someone, then what you can achieve has no boundaries, because it's you're building the knowledge and education, you're getting the support, you're then able to move forward with the goals that are important to you. So it's understanding that the team of people that are working with you have the same vision and have the same values that align with you.
Right. So I'll just put some context around that, because people watching this particular podcast may not be clients of Positive Real Estate. So obviously Positive Real Estate runs coaching, and we teach people about investing in real estate. And Laura, like I mentioned earlier, is one of our coaches that works with clients. And as you can see from our conversation today, Laura is obviously one of our very much in demand coaches based on her experience over the years with investing, and is a fully qualified coach with the Coaching Institute. I think you've got your certification. So and what Laura's basically saying is get a team of people around you, like find the coach, find the mentors, find the experts that are there to serve you and get you a result, and make sure you understand what they offer, what they do, what their experience is. And I think that was really important for you, Laura. You were a client of Positive Real Estate. I was a client of Positive Real Estate. Many of our coaches were. And then we've come through that journey, and then been invited to be part of the team to coach based on our success with our investing. I've got to know, because obviously I do a bit of prep on you before I interview you. And one of the things that I really liked in a response to a question of mine in here was you also talk about the risk of not doing something. Because when you're concerned about something, usually you're concerned about losing money, not being able to pay a mortgage. What happens if your job goes, COVID blows up again? Like, there can be any number of challenges one can imagine, right? But we seldom think of the flip side of that. Would you agree? The risk of not doing something. Where does your current trajectory look like you're going to be in the next X amount of years, right? Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Because I thought that was particularly pertinent.
Yeah, I think that probably what I was talking about was the missed opportunities of not being in the market. So sitting on your hands, I speak with clients, sometimes that have spent, perhaps looked at joining Positive Real Estate as a client 5 and 10 years ago, and one of them actually springs to mind. He shared his story when he came to one of my information sessions, that he'd actually been to one of our earlier sessions in sort of 2010, 2011 or 12.
Yeah.
And he talks about how at the same time Sam and the investment agency were talking about buying in Dulwich Hill, he was talking, he ended
Sydney.
up,
yep.
yes, yep. He ended up buying in Cairns. He didn't join Positive Real Estate at the time.
Yeah.
And 9 years later, he turned up in one of my information sessions, only to find out that Dulwich Hill is one of Sam's favourite stories. And I guess you look at that missed opportunity, and I can't even think of the numbers, which I probably should, because I've heard Sam talk about Dulwich Hill, but
I can fill you in. Yes. It's one of my favourites too.
Absolutely, because I think a number of the team bought in Dulwich Hill. And
I was a client.
None of the team gave up on it and sold it, but I think Sam held on to it. Did you hold on to it?
I've got it. It's still, buy well, never sell, right? So, and this is for people too that, sometimes concern themselves about apartments, and we talk about this a lot. I've got a 2-bedroom apartment in Dulwich Hill, and it's not a particularly fancy apartment. Like, it is pretty low brow. But Dulwich Hill is, inner west of Sydney, and I've held it like Sam has for quite a number of years. I think I bought it for around 400,000 and it's valued around $1 million today. And I've held it for since 2008, I think. Yeah,
that would make sense, because it would have been about 28. Yeah, it would have been
2009. Yeah,
it would have been about 2017-18 that this gentleman finally joined with us. And you look at that missed opportunity. Yes, he took action, but he took action in a market that didn't perform,
that didn't serve him. Yeah,
and didn't give the same results. And I think he spent 9 years kicking himself, not following through at the time. So I think definitely, at least he took action. But a lot of people spend so much time sitting on the shelf weighing up, analysis paralysis, thinking that there's a better way, when really what it's about is getting some leverage into the market that is good quality in a good location. It doesn't need to be the best property. There are lots of good options out there. It needs to, but it's buying in places where people want to live. That's really what's important. That support, the growth factor. And if you don't take an action to take that step forward, it's lost opportunity, because you don't know what you've missed out on.
100%. And so for my final question for you today, what am I going to pick? Actually, I think this is something important that I would like to discuss very briefly. What do your friends and family think about your investing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I've got to say, I didn't share with my friends and family.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll be honest. When I joined Positive Real Estate as a client, I didn't tell my father for 3 years.
My parents thought I'd joined a cult. My mother asked me, have you joined a cult? I'm like, no, Mum.
Oh, absolutely. So I think that's, look, I think, as I said to you earlier, my greatest mentor was always up until, my father, and still is. I'll bounce ideas off him all the time.
Yeah.
But we've got to realize that how my dad made money and how we need to make money is different in the future
Today, yeah.
and to what's happened in the past. And we've got to keep relevant in the market. So whilst I'll still bounce ideas off my father, I learnt that I needed to take on other key people's knowledge and education so that I kept moving forward. And you've got to understand, the people's knowledge is relevant to their personal circumstances. Largely, my dad was a farmer. That wasn't going to help me in the middle of Newcastle, especially because I didn't want to be a dairy farmer for the rest of my life. So, it's about finding other people that you can learn off and surrounding yourself by them. And until I was a coach, none of my friends knew that I was a property investor, because you always get people that are ready to tell you not to or make you fearful. And all that does is exacerbate that fear factor. So it's about building your knowledge and taking action. And, one of the things I work with my clients on really, hard is to, get different people's advice and then make
part of the 6-star team.
Make the decision that's right for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I really wanted to end on that one, because I know when I've interviewed a lot of our clients, a common theme once again is that they don't have people that they talk to in their normal friend set. They don't tell their friends. I've got clients that have 8, 9, 10 properties whose family and friends don't know they invest. And the reason for that is exactly what you said. Everyone's got a barbecue story. People feel it can be weird and can be threatened by people's success without even knowing it or having an ill intent. It'll come under the guise of concern. And it can really mess with your mojo investing. And I know a number of our clients have joined to be part of the community and to have other like-minded people, including their coaches and the 6-star team, but also all the other clients that they can tap into for that camaraderie as part of their investing journey, because they can't have those conversations at home.
And I think that's one of the benefits of some of those live mentoring workshops that we held before COVID and after COVID. But because our clients love getting together and sharing stories.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, in the interim, we've got Facebook and bits and pieces live, obviously.
It's amazing for people to share their questions, stories. Share their little wins and stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ms. Laura Chugg, thank you so much for coming on today and letting me interview you and get some of your perspective on investing. You've certainly been an incredibly successful investor, and we're very lucky to have you as part of our coaching team. So thank you again for agreeing to this and sharing your stories. And I'm sure we'll see you around the traps.
Thanks, Tab. Thanks, everyone.
See ya. Bye. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.